Today's video is sponsored by Linode. More on them later, but for right now, let's get into the video. Hey guys, Adam Savage here in my cave with a deep dive into another new kind of tool that I have not yet done before. For in between scissors and pliers exist the humble nippers. And this is probably the most common kind of nipper that you might have seen out in the world. But there are many kinds, and I'd like to describe what they do, how they do it, and walk you through a bunch of the nippers that I use on a daily basis for cutting wire and other things. At the very outset, I want to state, this is not a comprehensive guide to nippers. This is a guide to how I use them and the types that I use and how. So a nipper is effectively a cutting device that uses a very high amount of pressure applied to a very small point. The best way to visualize it is to look at this. The jaws of this nipper, way out at their edges, look like this. They're a pair of triangles that meet each other right here, and the pressure point is the apex of the two triangles, right there in the middle. With a reasonable lever arm, and that's what the handle of a nipper does. There's the pivot. With a reasonable lever arm, you can cut with great force. There are lots of different kinds of nippers, and there are different kinds of wire that you should be thinking about for different kinds of nippers. But I'm going to start at the very lightweight end. And the first kind of nippers that model makers use are called flush cutters. This is a reasonable depiction of a flush cutter. This is another very similar kind of flush cutter. This is a really beautiful professional flush cutter that I bought on Micromark many years ago. It comes with a red handle. We'll include links for all of these below. I custom made myself a outer casing for this pair of flush cutters. So first thing I want to explain is, how are flush cutters different from nippers? I pointed out that nippers' jaws meet like this here in the middle. Flush cutters do too, except that a flush cutter has a flat backside, which gives you, i.e., a flush cut. So when you cut something with these cutters specifically, and this is why I love them, they cut perfectly flat. So you cut stuff off of model sprues without leaving any sprue on the part that you're cutting off of. And that's what flush cutters do. They cut flush to a surface. Imperfectly under most cases, but literally for like styrene plastic modeling, these things are fantastic. These are like not lower grade versions of the same, because these are actually fabulous. They've built a lot of power into the tips of their jaws, but they're not true flush cutters. These are sort of semi-flush cutters. You can see that little valley here means it's not going to be a perfect flush cut, but for, again, clipping off 22, 23 gauge brad nails that are sticking out of your wooden box, that's what these things are great for. Then we get to your basic bread and butter cutters, which are these. And they all are essentially the same exact form factor, which is a highly angled part of the jaw and a flatter part of the jaw. That doesn't mean these are flush cutters. These still have this valley here, and all three of these do. These are all part of my collection. I got these from DeWalt as part of Savage Builds, and these came as part of a thing with Irwin. I really like all these. I must say, the ones I gravitate towards more than any other are the spring return ones. I gotta say, having a spring return makes a real difference. These are super bloody powerful, and actually it's worth taking a look at the reason that these can cut more than these. First up, the head is thicker. Secondly, my guess is going to be that the Irwin jaws are probably even a little bit harder. But most importantly is the lever arm. Irwin has worked really hard to make these two handles very comfortable in how your hand feels crunching them. That is a key part of the power of a set of nippers. And these less so. Again, these are standard bread and butter Ace Hardware cutters, and I love them for the spring return. When I have to cut powerful things, that's when I go for these. Ooh, within reason. And now a note about our sponsor, Linode. Linode is a cloud computing company that offers affordable, accessible tools for hosting anything you want, anything anyone can imagine on the internet. They reached out to us because they know that we're part of the maker community, and makers frequently need simple storage solutions for their projects, whether it's a blog post or a portfolio or just a folder full of reference photos for a project. Linode also supports heavily trafficked sites like Giphy and Wayfair, so they can readily serve up millions of images when a business or an app goes viral. Linode also offers useful cloud apps like Nextcloud, an open source productivity platform that acts like a hub to store files with a Dropbox-style user interface. Nextcloud also offers services like personal video calls, calendar, and an online office suite. One thing we liked when we heard about Linode is if you have trouble setting up, they have 24-hour customer service by phone or ticket, as well as hundreds of guides and tutorials to help you get yourself set up and become a master of the cloud. And Linode, of course, has a special offer for tested viewers. Go to linode.com/tested to receive a $100 60-day credit on your new Linode account. The link is in the description. Thank you, Linode, for sponsoring this video. All right. Back to the tools. This is a beautiful pair of Jeweler's parallel jaw pliers I picked up on eBay a few years ago. They have a nipper over here, like an added bonus nipper on the side. Now, actually, your standard pair of pliers also come with a bonus nipper here in the middle. I find while it works okay for coat hangers, it doesn't work well for nearly anything else. Like even a paperclip can be munged by this thing. Yeah, I don't think much of the pliers cutting surface, but this beautiful pair of highly guided nipper blades makes a very nice cut with very little effort. I occasionally look on eBay for tools like this just because I'm interested in strange tool form factors. The same kind of searching led me to this, which I believe is actually medical in nature. Vertex makes this, model 1085. And it's got this really interesting, first of all, it's got a spring return, but it's got this really fascinating mechanical arrangement. And this will cut with even less effort. It is really impressive. And you can actually take a look and I think see the hardening on the jaws out there at the tips. This is right here. This is differential hardening. This is where this part is a softer steel and this part has been either hardened steel has been welded to this or the steel has been differentially hardened. So these jaws are much more resist denting. That is one of the issues with nippers. If you cut the wrong wire, they dent. Unless they are my favorite nippers in the world, which are Nipex. Now, Nipex, I have 3 different sets of Nipex nippers. And these were my first set. This was my first set. It took me years to buy these because Jamie always had a couple pairs of these in the shop. And thus it never occurred to me to go buy a set because I used them on Mythbusters all the time. I just used Jamie's. The other reason I didn't buy myself a set of these is they're expensive. The Nipex nippers are in the $40 to $50 range, which is, sometimes that's a lot for a tool. Sometimes it's not a lot for a tool. For the longest time, it never even occurred to me to spend that kind of money on a pair of nippers. When I did, it really did sort of change my life because what these guys do, they cut coat hanger wire with the same alacrity as these guys do and these guys. They'll cut steel welding wire all day long. And these guys, I wonder how these guys will do with that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's a lot tougher. Here, we're going to try this one. That one's pretty good. But the ease that the Nipex do it is impressive. These are even more ergonomic and they have a slight angle to them. Again, it's not a flush cutter. It's got this little valley here, but there we go. Then we end up with, these are almost like bolt cutters. This is very similar to the form factor of bolt cutters that you can cut locks with. And these are the most powerful pair of hand-operated nippers I own. You can see how easy it is for me to close this on this 1/8 welding wire. It's no issue. For your average maker, mostly what you're cutting is things like wire and coat hanger wire. Mild steel, that's not a problem. When you have to cut harder things though, like this is spring steel wire. And I use spring steel wire a lot. I use it for pinning. I make some springs occasionally. This is a key part of any maker's kit, and you can't cut this with any old nippers. I would never in my life try and cut this with a pair of normal Ace hardware nippers, nor even these Irwins. Their jaws might be hardened, but I would be afraid. Yeah, I'm not gonna try. I'm just not gonna try. I've ruined too many normal handled nippers by that. But the Nipex cut this spring steel all day long. And yeah, you can hear in the crack how much force there is there. I mean, I used to be a special effects prop master for television commercials. And I remember on one shoot, we had some spring steel plant wire. The wire that goes inside fake flowers is often a hardened spring steel. And I found a PA using my good cloth scissors, not these, but my good cloth scissors, trying to cut through the neck of this fake flower, which had spring steel inside. And I was like, stop, give me the scissors. And he handed me the scissors and I felt them and it was just dense, just like dings all the way down my cloth scissors. I was so sad. You don't necessarily have to have all these nippers. I am a gearhead and I love my tools. I love different versions of tools. I can't, it's like butter. It's like no resistance at all. If I had to desert island choose just a few, I would choose my model flush cutters, my nice and beefy electrical cutters for brad nails and stuff, my basic pair of nippers. These are nice. Oh yeah, the heavy duty nippers. And then, yeah, I would go with all three of these Nipex. Yeah, I would consider this to be my mission critical desert island set of 7 nippers, and the rest are kind of extra gravy on the dinner, as it were. These Nipex, I've had these now coming on 17 years. And their jaws do have a little bit of damage. I don't notice that damage in their performance at all. And that's because they've literally been my go-tos forever. And they've been on like every Mythbusters shoot, 2005 on. These, which are, oh, actually, these are older than these. And if you look at them, the oldest ones are even better looking. The oldest ones have even jaws that are even better shaped. I don't know what special alchemy Nipex puts in their steel, but they do make some of my all-time favorite hand tools in these beautiful nippers. There you go. I hope this information is useful. If you know of a pair of nippers that I don't know about, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you have an all-time favorite pair that I haven't covered here, again, I'd love to know about it in the comments. And I want to reiterate, this is not a comprehensive guide to this type of tool. It is more of a comprehensive guide to how I use this kind of tool. I hope that it's been relatively instructive for you. Oh, I just love talking about the gear. Thank you guys for joining me for this show and tell, and I will see you next time.